Welcome to another Divhunt video. Today I'm going to show you the very basics that will help you to understand how web development works and to make it easier for you to adapt to Divhunt platform. So without further ado, I want you to imagine every part of your web page as a box. For example, the navbar at the top of the page is one large box containing smaller boxes. Each smaller box might be the logo or the navigation links. Next, we have the hero section, which is another large box. Inside this box you have even more boxes, like heading 1, paragraph and a link. Each of these elements is a box within the larger box of the hero section. On the left side of my screen you can see the list of my layers on this web page. Here you can see more precisely how my elements nest inside each other. For example, my paragraph is inside a div. This div is nested inside another div, this div is nested inside the container, and the container is nested inside my section. These tags or blocks nested inside each other are my hero section. The next important thing to learn is how to use sections. Sections help you organize your web page by dividing it into different parts. Think of your web page as a series of sections, each one like a big box containing smaller boxes. These sections help you arrange your content and make it easier to read. Additionally, sections are crucial for search engines like Google and good SEO practice. The next most important thing that goes into a section is the container. A container holds all the content of the section in the middle, ensuring that it stays organized and doesn't break out of its layout. Every section should have a container inside it to hold the section's entire content. When I enter in preview mode and start resizing my viewport, you can see that my container can adjust to be smaller, but it will not go beyond this width. Now to demonstrate you how my content will look like without the container, I will take this div here and pull it outside of the container. You can immediately see that my content is now sticking to the edges of my screen, is not centered, and is not aligned with the content from the other sections. And these issues will fix immediately as soon as I drag this div back into its container. When you're packing boxes together, by default they will be squished without any spacing between them. You can control this by adjusting paddings and margins. To begin with the paddings, I will first add a background color to this section, just to be easier for you to see what am I doing. Paddings add space between the content inside the box. Think of it as adding extra cushioning inside the box to prevent the content from touching the edges. Here you can see as I edit the bottom padding of my section, the bottom spacing in my section is changing, and if I set this value to 0, my content will touch the bottom edge of my section. On the other hand, margins control the spacing around the box. They add space between the outside of the box and the other elements around it. Here you can see as I increase the top margin of my div, it will be pushed away from the tag above it. If I set this value to 0, my div and the tag above it will stick to each other. It is also possible to edit multiple values at the same time. If you hold Alt key on your keyboard and drag one value for padding, the current value and the opposite value will be edited simultaneously. If you go and hold Shift on your keyboard and drag one value, all the values for padding will be edited at the same time. These shortcuts are also applicable to the margin values. Now that you know how to control your boxes with padding and margins, let's talk about how to position them. For this example, let's scroll down this page and let's take a look at this section. By default, boxes stack at each other, but what if you want to place them side by side? To achieve this here, I need to select the wrapper that holds my divs. Now I can go to the layout part and set my div to be flexible. You can immediately see that items inside my flexible div are now stacking side by side. You will also get some additional options connected to the flex property, like changing the alignment of items inside of your flexible tag. For example, I can make my flexible items be aligned by the center horizontally, and I can make them be split apart as much as possible. Now let's transition our attention to the section above and see another positioning method. For this example, I have these 6 items here, nested inside my div. I will select my div, go again into the layout part, and this time set my div to be grid. When I click here, I will get some additional options for my grid property. I can set up the space between my items horizontally and vertically, and I can as well see the number of columns that will split my items. As you can see, right now my items are split in two separate columns. I can go here and hit the plus icon to add more columns. Now you can see that I have 3 different columns that will split my items. I can add as many columns as I want and even remove the unnecessary ones. Now if I go and hover over my items that are inside my grid system, you can see how they are organized. Now let's see how can you add tags to your page. All the necessary elements, they are also called HTML tags, are located on the top panel. You can quickly add these tags to your canvas by left-clicking on them or hit Ctrl+Command+E on your keyboard and type whatever element you need. If I again go back to my search bar, you can see that there are also many more elements available here that are not visible on the top panel. If you want to switch one element to another without deleting it and adding a new one, you can simply select the element you want to transform, go to the top bar, right-click on the element you want to transform it to, and here you can see that my icon has changed, and that means that my tag is transformed. If you want to group multiple elements together, you can use a div. Let's group these elements inside a div and see what we can do with it. As you can see, this doesn't change the appearance of my content, just helps me organize it. For example, instead of adding margins to each of these elements separately, I can simply go and set my div to be flex, set direction to be vertical, and I can insert a gap here. Now you can see that my tags have gap between them without needing to set the margin to every tag separately. Or I can even go and set the font color to this div, and all the text tag inside of my div will get this property. Now that we've covered all the basics, let's see how to effectively set up your project for the most efficiency. CSS works on the principle of inheritance. If an element doesn't have styles directly applied to it, it will inherit styles from its closest parent element. This was also the case with our previous example when we set the font color to our div and all the tags inside my div has inherited that font color. We can use this functionality to our advantage to reduce manual work. Let's set default values for our most commonly used elements. For this example, I'll select my body tag, set the styling method to global, and every single style I set up here will be applied to every body tag in my project. For the beginning, let's change the background color. You can immediately notice that all the sections that doesn't have background color set directly on them are inheriting these styles from my body tag. And why is this hero section not inheriting this color? If I select it and go to the background color, you will see that this section here already have background color manually set directly to it. If I go back and this time change the font size property, you will notice that some of the text tags, precisely my paragraphs, are affected by these styles. If you want to know for a specific style from which tag is inherited, you can simply go to that style, right-click on it, and this pop-up will show you from which tag is inherited and also from which breakpoint. Now let's switch to our heading 1. If I again go and set the styling methods to global and edit some styles here, you will notice that as I add new heading 1s into my page, they have exact same styles. If I go back to the global styles of my heading 1 and edit some properties, you will notice that every heading 1 has now gotten these new properties. By setting these default styles, you avoid having to apply them manually to each element every time you add it. And if I want to manually set some styles to this specific tag here, I can simply select it and directly on a tag I can set some styles, and those styles will be applied for this heading, overriding the global styles and preventing my tag from inheriting the styles from its parent tags. Now let's see how can you reuse colors. If you go here, select the colors panel, hit the plus icon, you can add a new color. And now if I select this tag here, open the color picker, all my saved colors will be shown here, ready for me to use them in one click. Now let's scroll down our web page here and take a look at this section. If you have a section that should have inverted colors, you can set these styles on the section directly, and all elements inside will inherit them unless changed manually. As you can see, this paragraph here is inheriting the font color from its parent, in our case it's this section here, and if I am to go and manually change the font color for this paragraph, it will break the inheritance. This method is very useful when you are using sections with different styles. Instead of going to every single text tag and changing their font color, I can simply select my section, change the font color, and every text tag inside my section will inherit those styles. We've learned how to set up global styles, but often you need to override them based on your design. It's crucial to think in a way that allows you to reuse styles as much as possible to avoid manual work. Let's explore classes and when you should use them. Classes are reusable styles you can apply to multiple elements at the same time. This way you can manage your styles efficiently. Suppose you have many sections with a gray background. Instead of setting the color manually for each section separately, you can create a class called background gray, assign styles to this class, and this class is ready to be reused. Now apply this class to your sections, and you can see that all the sections now have the same styles. If you decide to change the styles of your sections, you can simply go to this class, edit it, and you can see that all of my sections has now edited simultaneously. Sometimes you might need to change styles only on a specific place, and creating a new class might not be necessary. In such cases, you can apply styles directly to your tag. For example, if I want to change the font color and font size of this paragraph specifically, I can simply select it and directly on a tag I can set the new values, and these values will only be applied to this tag. Now when we explain some different styling methods, let's see how they override each other. For this example, I've created this div here, and as you can see, the background of this div is inherited from its parent. If I go and add a class to this div, let's go with the background red class, and apply the different styles for a background color on this class, you will notice that the styles from my class are overriding the inherited styles on this div. Now if I go and select a tag and set some different background color directly on this tag, you will notice that these styles override my class styles and my inherited styles on this div. This makes tag styling the strongest on this hierarchy. But in some cases you might wanna override the tag styles, and that is possible. For example, let's select this class, go to the background styles, right click on this style and set this style to be important. Now you can see that styles from my class are overriding my tag styles and the inherited styles. And this property here will make your style the strongest in this hierarchy. Before we jump into developing our page, there is one last very important thing to remember. Never use fixed values for element sizing. Setting fixed widths or heights can break the layout on different screen sizes, especially on smaller ones. Instead of setting a fixed width, use a max width for element that need it. In this case, you can see that I've set the maximum width to my container. But what would happen if instead of maximum width I set this value to be my width? You can see that as I enter the preview mode and start resizing the viewport, you will see that my content is not breaking on smaller devices. Instead of that, it is going outside of the boundaries of the viewport. Now if I go and set this value to be maximum width, and for the width I set 100%, you will see as I shrink the screen, my content will shrink as well. It won't go outside of the boundaries. This method tells my container you can be a maximum of 1440 pixels wide, but you can shrink smaller if needed. Just never exceed this given value. As for the height, you usually don't need to set a fixed value. In 99% of the cases, elements will determine their height based on their content. This ensures that your layout remains fluid and adapts to different screen sizes. And with all of that said, let's begin building our project. In front of me I have ready Figma design which I prepared for this project, where we are going to fully recreate this design here in Divhunt, make it fully functional and as well responsive for smaller devices. So without further ado, let's begin. First of all, I'm going to transfer all the colors that I'm using here on Divhunt and as well set some default font styles. If I open this menu here, you can see the list of all the colors that I'm using in this design. So let's save all of these colors into variables on Divhunt. I'm going to copy this hex value here, go back into Divhunt, open styles, then colors panel, hit plus icon, and here I'm going to input the name for my variable, hit confirm, and here I can set the value for my color. I'm going to switch to hex value and paste the value that I copied from Figma. When I hit enter, my variable will be created. Now I'm going to do the same for all the other variables. Now when we created variables, let's go back in Figma and let's set some default font styles. First of all, I'm going to set styles for my heading 1. So as you can see, here I need font Satoshi. So let's first of all go back in Divhunt and install the new font. I'm going to my settings, into the fonts panel. I'm going to add custom font. I'm going to name it Satoshi. When I click upload files, I already prepared all the files that I need. So I'll just upload them, wait for them to upload, hit add font, and my custom font is added. So now let's go back and apply this custom font to our project. I'm going to select the body tag, go into designer, select global here, and into the font family, I'm going to set the Satoshi. And now all of my tags will inherit this font family. So now let's switch to my pages, and here into style sheet I can see the list of all the tags. So let's go back in Figma to see the styles that we need. First of all, I need to set this font here to be medium, 90 pixels font size and 110 pixels line height. So let's select our heading 1, select it globally. Let's set here medium, 90 pixels, and here I'm going to input 1.1 unitless value. This basically means this value times the font size will be the font height of this heading here. So with this set, let's go back to Figma and let's see what we need for our heading 2. Here I need medium 40 pixels and 140%. So let's again select our heading 2 globally. Here we need medium, we need 40% pixels, and here we need 1.4 unitless. I will quickly transfer all the other heading styles that I need. And with this done, let's now see how much we need for our paragraph sizing. So here, let's open this again. We need a regular 16 pixels and 140%. So this time, let's select our body tag, open it globally. And here I'm going to input the values that I need. As you can see, they're already here by the default. And why I want these values on my body tag instead of my paragraph, that's because I want all the other text tags beside my headings to inherit those styles. So I want my list items, paragraphs, spans, and similar. So here what else I can do is to set the font color to be text dark, so all of my fonts can inherit this color as well. And with this done, we are pretty much done with our custom fonts, so we can immediately go back to our homepage and start building our sections. The first section that we have here is our Navbar section. So let's go back to Divhunt and let's open these predefines first. I'm going to select sections, open these navbars drop down, and here I can select some predefined structures for my navbar. For this example, I'm going to select this one. I'm just going to drag it into my project, and this section here is ready to be used. Now let's make some fine editing here to make this section look exactly like the one in Figma. So first of all, let's zoom it a bit and let's change this logo here. So I'm going to settings, source, and let's set this logo which we need. And let's remove this underline here. So let's select our nav link, select globally all links on our on our project, and let's here remove this underline. Let's set it to none, and you can see that every single link here, including this button, has lost that underline. So second thing, I'm going to remove this link which we don't need, and you can see that this button is centered here. So let's push it all the way to the right. And here, let's check out the font styles here. We would need to reset this style and this style. So as you can see, these links have a default blue font color. So let's again select our global links and force them to have this font color. So now let's again select our links, but this time through the layers here. And let's set a class, let's call it P, which is short for paragraph dash medium. And this class will hold my design for the medium font weight. So let's apply this class as well here. First of all, I'm going to reset all these styles that the predefines has, and let's set the P-medium here, and let's set the font color to be text dark. And with this, we're pretty much finished with these fonts here. And let's pay our attention to this button here. So let's select it and let's input the border radius first. Let's go with 1000 pixels so we can have that curve. Let's set this here to be 30 pixels, and let's set the background color to be our button green, and for the font color we need text dark here, and we don't need this border here. And let's set the font size to be 15 pixels and reset this font weight. And let's check out again in Figma, and we just need to switch content for our links and for our button. So let's do that really quickly. So I'm going to paste that here. You can simply go into settings and paste the content, or the other method will be to double click something, some text tag, paste the content and hit save here. So I'm really quickly going to exchange the remaining links. I have changed the content for the remaining links, and here in this predefine section you also have this mega menu drop down, which you can simply hover this trigger here, and you can go with your cursor inside of this mega menu. You can simply click on anything and further edit those styles here. So with this done, we are pretty much done with our navbar section. So let's jump back to our Figma file, and you can see that this navbar here and this hero section are much wider than the other content on my web page. And to resolve this, we can make two different styles for our containers, one the default style and one through the classes. And first one, you can see that this smaller container here is most commonly used, so this is going to be our default style. So let's select this here so we can see the width that we need, and here you can see that we need 1200 pixels, and for the wide one we need 1800 pixels. So let's go back into a Divhunt, let's select our container here, let's go back to designer and select it globally here. And now here we will need to input the max width of 1200 pixels, but I'm going to add extra 40 pixels. And why is that? That's because I have 20 pixels for my left and the right padding, and when I sum up those two numbers I get the number 40, which is the extra value for my max width. And why have I this left and right padding? So let me quickly set these two to be 0, and let's enter the preview mode here. You will notice when I resize my viewport here that my content is sticking to the right and to the left edges of my screen. And to prevent that, let's get out of the preview mode. Let's input the 20 pixels on the left and on the right side. And again, back into preview mode, you can see that my content is now pushed for the 20 pixels from the left and from the right edge, and that's the reason why containers have the left and right padding. And with this done, we have our default container set up, and now let's set our wide container. So again, I'm going to select container, and here let's input the class of container-wide, hit enter, and on this container I'm going to set the value of 1800 and again extra 40 pixels, because this container here will inherit the global styles for paddings of 20 on the left and on the right side, so we again have this extra 40. And now you can see that we have this white container in our navbar, and our navbar is completed. So let's close this section here, and let's see the next section we have in Figma file, and that is our hero section. Now let's get back to Divhunt and start working on our hero section. First, I'm going to add new section. I can name it hero here. I can nest one container inside, and inside my container I'm going to add one div, which is going to be my wrapper. So I'm going to rename it really quickly. And here we're going to need another div, which is going to be the wrapper of my text. So let's name it text wrap, and immediately let's set some sizing on this wrapper here. So all we have to do here is to set the left padding of 60 pixels, bottom padding of 60 pixels, and the right one of 60 pixels, and the top one needs to be 300 pixels padding. And now while our wrapper is selected, let's add that background image. So here I'm going to hit plus icon, select the image, select the source, and this is the image we need. I'm going to use it. Let's select to be cover, so it can be in the middle of my wrapper here, and set it to be no repeat. Now, as you can see, our section is way smaller here than in Figma. So for our container, we will need the class that we previously created, that is container wide. So as you can see, we now have this big hero section here. And now let's see how much radius we need. We need 40 pixels border radius on our wrapper so we can get those curved edges. And here for the structure we need one heading 1, one paragraph, and one button. So let's add one link here. And now on our section I'm going to set the font color to be white, so every text tag inside my section can inherit this color. So let's go back in Figma to see what else we need. First of all, we need the space between our heading and paragraph of 20 pixels and 40 pixels between paragraph and button. So let's again create those two styles through classes, because those are common styles and I may reuse them later on. So MB stands for margin bottom of 20 pixels, and while this class is selected, I'm going to add margin bottom of 20 pixels. Same goes for my paragraph here. So let's go MB-40 this time and set the margin button to be 40 pixels. And now let's really quickly transfer this content here. And now you can see that my text is not breaking. That's because it is going in full width. So let's check out how much wide our wrapper shall be. It needs to be 625 pixels of max width. So let's input that. And now our breaking is correct. And for our paragraph, we would need a bigger font size. So let's go here again and let's create another class here of p-big, which is going to be my second style for text tags. And let's set here 20 pixels, which is my second style for paragraphs. And you can see that we again have a new class, which we can later on reuse. Now, here we need to set up the max width for our paragraph separately. So let's go here, and max width needs to be 540 pixels. And now we have our breaking here correctly. But what about our button? How can we reuse the styles from this button to these buttons as well? So for that we can create classes, but we would need to add one class here and all our styles, reset them here and set them on our class. And you can avoid that extra work on Divhunt. And how can you do that? Well, simply let's add one class here. Let's call it simply button. And now I'm going to select my tag, open the custom CSS, and every single style here I'm going to hit Ctrl X on my keyboard to cut those styles, hit save, and you can see that here I have this blank button. Now I'm going to select my class here, again open the custom CSS, paste those styles, and all of those styles will now be applied to my class instead of my tag. And now I can simply go back to my new button, select it, just pass the class here of button, and you can see that it contains all the other styles, but now it's going in full width and it has some strange hover animation. So let's fix that. To fix that, I can simply set this button. Let's select class. So we are going to edit everything on a class. Let's set this button to be inline block so it doesn't stretch in full width. And let's now fix this strange hover animation. So I'm going to select this instance here. And for the first step, let's remove the border here. And for the background, let's set our text green, for example. We also can set our font color to be white here. And you can see that we have nice animation here. And because we used it on a class, we have same animation transferred here. And now we can simply reuse this button later on. And with this done, we are pretty much done with our hero section. So back in Figma, let's pay our attention to this section right now. So here we would need to break this text into 3 separate parts to achieve this structure here. So basically, this text here is going to be our first part, the highlighted text is going to be second part, and this normal text is going to be our third part. So let's go back into Divhunt and let's see what we need here. So first of all, let's add one section, one container inside, and one div, which is going to be our wrapper. And let's add top spacing to our section. So my hero section and this section here can be splitted. And now we need one div here. Let's name it title. And we are going to nest one heading 2 inside. And as we said before, we need 3 parts for this text. So let's input a 3 span tags inside my heading 2. Now let's go back in Figma and let's copy this text. I have already break it down right here. And let's copy the first part into a first span, second part into the second span, and the third part into the third span. And now you can see that we have 3 different text tags, but they work as one big text block. So now I can go and see what color I need here. So we need text green, and I can select my second span, go to the designer and set the font color to be text green. And now you can see that I can set styles separately on these span tags. So now all we have to do here is to input a spacing between our first, second and third span. So let's select the second one again, and let's add left and right margin of 8 pixels. Let's round it to 10, and we're pretty much done here. So let's go again back in Figma, and now we need this, let me zoom in, we need this separator here. So let's again go back here, let's close this one, and let's add one div here. On this div, I'm going to set a width of 100%, just for it to stretch fully in width, 100 here, not 10. We need a height of 1 pixel, and we need to set the background to be text dark, and to set the opacity to be 15%. So here I'm going to input 0.15 value, and this is the opacity for my color. And now, so you can see what we achieved, let's add spacing here. So we need 40 pixels top and bottom. So at this div, let's firstly name it separator, and let's input the top and bottom margin of 40 pixels. And now you can see that we have top spacing here, but we cannot see the bottom spacing. That's because we don't have anything below our separator. So let's add one more div, and now you can clearly see the separator that I've made here. And that is another example of how can you use a div tag. You don't need only to use it to wrap your content, you can use it to create certain shapes like separators, circles, and so on and so on. Now let's go back again in Figma, and here we need to make this structure here. So first of all, let's input our title. So here, let's name this structure here grid. And inside we need one heading 3. I already copied the content from Figma, so let's paste it here. And into this heading 3, we will set a class of margin bottom 40 pixels. We already have it, so we can just simply reuse it. And now we need these cards here. So let's again go back here. Let's create another div, which is going to be card wrapper. And inside we would need another div, which is going to be our card. So here, first of all, let's set up the background color. We need BG secondary. We need border radius to be 20 pixels. And let's see the spacing we need. So we need 30 pixels padding all around. So let's quickly input that here. I'm holding shift on my keyboard so I can simultaneously edit every value here. And here for the structure, we need image, we need a heading 4, and we need a simple paragraph. The spacing is 10 pixels here and 80 pixels here. So let's input one image, one H4, and one paragraph, and let's set those spacings. So let's again go with the class MB80 here. Set the margin bottom to 80 pixels, and to our heading 4 we would need MB-10, and let's set that value as well. And now we need to duplicate this structure here 3 more times. As you can see here, we have 3 cards. So in Divhunt you have one option called loop. So basically, whenever you want to duplicate some content, you just right click on the tag you want to duplicate, and into this loop field you just input the value of how much times you want to duplicate that content, basically. So I need 3 cards here. When I input number 3 here, you can see that I have 3 cards now. So let's place these cards in one row. I'm going to select the wrapper that is wrapping all 3 of my cards and set it to be grid. And as you can see, I have additional options for my grid here. So let's open them. And because we have 3 cards, we would need 3 columns here. So let's hit plus here so everything can be placed into one row. Now let's input a gap here. We need 30 pixels. So let's set that. And let's really quickly exchange the content of these cards. I've transferred my content here, so let's check out Figma again. And now for this section, we only need this bottom spacing. So let's input that as well. Again, we are going to input it directly on our section as bottom padding, so we need 150 pixels. And as you can see, our section here is good to go. Now let's transition our attention to this section here. And as you can see, our section here is good to go. Now let's transition our attention to this section here. And this section here will be our first section with a functionality. So first of all, let's begin with our title here. So we need one H2 and we need a paragraph. So let's add a section, add a container inside a section, and let's add a div, which is again going to be our wrapper. And right away, we can add another div, which is going to be our title. And inside, as we said, we need H2 and we need a paragraph. So let's paste the content inside this H2 and inside this paragraph here as well. And because we need a bigger paragraph here, let's on this paragraph set a class that we previously created, p-big. And now to split those two texts, I'll select my title here, set it to be grid, and you can see that my two text tags will be split into two even columns. And with this, we have finished our title part of this section. So let's input the spacing here. So let's input a class here of mb-60. We need the new class here, and let's set the value here to 60. And now what is left here is to create these autoplay tabs. So to achieve that, let's go into settings here first, to browse plugins, and you want to install a plugin called tabs. So let's hit install, hit confirm, wait a few seconds for a plugin to install. And once this is finished, you can go back. And this time, let's again open these predefines here. And here into elements panel, you can see that some of the predefined structures for your tabs. For this example, let's zoom in here a bit. For this example, I'm going to use this sidebar auto rotating tab. So all I have to do is just click, drag it, and let's position this correctly. And I want to drag this into my project. And as you can see, this is outside of my section. So let's close this title here and let's close this as well. So I can drag this inside my wrapper here. And as you can see, I have a ready structure for me to use. So first thing first, let's reset some of the predefined styles that I don't want here. For example, this text color, I don't want it here. This background color, this border, and let's remove this whole paragraph because we have completely different structure here. And let's as well reset these paddings here. And for now, that's it. We don't need to reset anything else. And now we can begin editing our navbars first. So here you can see that we have two styles. We have one default style and we have active state style. So first of all, let's set the default style. So here we need a background. We need 20 pixels all around and border radius. So let's go here, select our tab opener, and let's increase the padding here to 20. Set border radius to 20. Set the background to BG secondary. And here you can see that this progress bar is going outside of this tab opener. So let's select our tab opener again and set the overflow here to hidden. So everything that goes outside of this div will be cut off. And here we would need to set a p medium class to our text that we previously created. And let's see if we need anything else for the default styles, and that will be everything. Now we can style our active state. So here we need button green background for active state. And how can you set a active state for your tabs? Well, if you used a predefines, you will have this instance here already created. So just select it and everything you added here will be the styles for your active state. So let's reset these default styles and let's input a button green style for our background. And you can see that the first button, which is active right now, will have these designs. And with that, we're pretty much done for now with our navigation links here. So we can transition our attention to the part on the right. And here we need to split this into two parts for our text and for our image. And let's right away go and do that. So here into a tab content, we are going to need two divs, which one is going to be text wrap and the other is going to be image wrap. So now let's see some of the styles that we need. First of all, we need a border radius, we need background color, and we need text color different, and we need spacing here of 40 and 56. So let's select our tab content here, set a background here to be text dark, and immediately here I will set the font color to be white, so my text tag inside can inherit this color. And now let's set this to stretch in height as much as possible, so let's input a height here of 100%, so it will stretch as much as it can. Let's input a border radius here, so we can curve those edges, and let's input left and right spacing here. So for that spacing, let's first input an H4, paragraph, and link button here, and let's immediately set a class to our link button so it can be visible. We need a button class, and here it is. And now we need a spacing, so that spacing I'm going to set on this text wrap here. So as we said before, we need 40 on the left, let's set 40 on the right, we need 56 here, and we need 56 here. And now let's set one image tag inside our image wrap, and let's really quickly exchange this image here. We're going to set this image. Now this content here needs to be on the left and the image on the right. So for that, let's select our tab content, go to the designer, and we can input a grid property here as well. But for some reason we only have one column here, so let's increase it to 2 like this. And now we would need this image wrap to be pushed all the way to the right, so I'm going to set this property here, and again you can see that the content is going outside of my div here because it has curved edges. So let's select our tab content, which has this border radius, set overflow hidden again, and you can see that this image which is going outside is cut off. Now let's center our content here. All I have to do here is select this text wrap and set it here to be center. Now we can pay our attention to the gaps here, so let's check out how much gaps we need. We need 15 pixels here, and we need 40 pixels here, so let's set that as well. MB-15, which has 15 bottom margin, and we need 40 pixels here, so I think we already have the class created, and yes, we have. And now I'm going to ensure that this image stays the same size no matter how big image you input here. So basically what I need to do here is this image wrap, set its position to be relative, and this image inside of it, I'm going to set it to be absolute. And now I'm going to set this value here, so my image will be stretched based on my div size. And now we need to define the size for this div, because this image, when set to be absolute, she loses the positioning in this project, and basically this div here doesn't have any child inside of it and doesn't have any sizings because of that. So let's go back here and see what size we need here. We need a 350 by 350, so let's set that here. We need maximum width of 350 pixels, and let's input the width of 100%, and you can see that this here will be stretched, and as well we can input for our image 100% width and 100% height, so it can perfectly fit into this div. And to avoid the squishy effect or blurry effect on this image, let's set it to be cover here, and it will be a little bit cut off on the top and at the bottom, but it won't be squished or appear blurry. And now you can see that we have image 350 by 284, so let's set it to be 350 by 350, and here I can set the minimum height for this image wrap to be 350 here. So basically this means that this div will always be 350 pixels, and it can go above this value if needed. So I like to work with this value and avoid a fixed height. And now when this structure here is completed, let's see what else we need. First of all, we need to exchange the content here, so let's really quickly do that. And we have our structure here pretty much complete. All that is left here is to transfer these texts into Navbar, so let's quickly do that. here I am again with the new content here, and as you can see here we have 4 navigation links, and in Figma we have 5. And how can you increase or decrease the number of links and panels here? Well, simply here you would have, if you're again using the predefines, you would have this tab opener looped 4 times by the default, and here I want to increase it to 5 times, and you can see that I will get extra navigation link, or here you can decrease the number and you will have less navigation links. And one very important thing here is when you're increasing the tab opener, you need to increase this here as well. So this tab content and tab opener need to match in how many times are duplicated in order for your tabs to work properly. And when we match those 2 numbers, let's now set the text that is left here. So paste this one, and again you can see the difference between my navbars here and in Figma. This navbar here is breaking into 2 rows, and these ones here are going in 1 row. That's because my nav cards on Divhunt are way smaller than here. Here you can see that they are 340 pixels wide, and here they are 250. And to fix this, I'll select this autoplay sidebar tabs div, go to its grid settings, and here you can see that the first column of this div or this nav links has set width of 250 pixels. So let's set that to be 340, and you can see that now my links here are going into 1 row. And now you can see as well that this paragraph here is breaking more times on Divhunt than in Figma, and to fix that we can simply reduce the right padding here. We can even set it to be 0, or let's reset it fully, and you can see that now it is breaking the same amount of rows as in Figma. So we have fixed that as well. And now the only thing that is left on these tabs to do is to change content on my other tabs. And let's see how can you do that on Divhunt. Well, basically when you select these autoplay sidebar tabs, go to its settings, here you can see this plugin that is set here. So when you click on it, you will have additional options for this plugin, and the first field here is opened tab. By the default you will have 1 as value here. So what will happen if I input 3, for example? You can see that my 3rd tab will be opened by the default, and I can come here freely and edit everything connected to my 3rd tab. So let's go back, let's set here 2, so our 2nd tab will be open, and now I can exchange the content here. So I'll really quickly exchange the content for my remaining tabs, and here I am again with my new content here. So before we test how our tabs work on live site, let's again go back to plugin settings and set here 1, so our first link will be opened by the default. So let's go here, click on this link here, and our page will be open. Now let's scroll down, and here is our section. As you can see, we have this loading bar, and as soon as it fills to the end, it will switch to the next tab, and I can as well click manually here and switch between those tabs, and my autoplay will still work. But this autoplay here is not by the design. So let's go back here and let's style our progress bar here. So first of all, here we need to set the background color for the default to be transparent, and let's open again the plugin settings, and here you can see this progress bar color field, and here you need to paste your hex color value. Don't forget this hashtag at the beginning. Hit save, and now let's go back, hit refresh, and now you can see that we don't have that track color, but we have this loading bar color exchanged for our color. And now let's go back here, and here into plugin settings you will have a lot of different options to customize your tabs to your wishes. So let's now go to Figma to check out what else we need here. And the last thing for this section would be this gap here. So let's input that gap to our section again, 150 pixels bottom padding, and we have created this section. The next section in our list is this section here. So what we need here, we need a border radius background color, we need a heading 2, simple paragraph, and 1 button. So let's go back into a Divhunt. Let's first of all create one section, create container inside, create one div, which is going to be wrapper. And inside, let's create two more divs. One is going to be image wrap, and the other is going to be content wrap. And here, as we said before, we need one heading 2, we need simple paragraph, and we need our button. So let's right away set class to this button here, and here it is. And now on the whole wrapper, I'm going to add a background color. We need this one, and set the font color to be white, so my texts can be visible here. And let's check out what else we need here. We need a different color here. We need button green, and for the spacing we need 20 pixels and 40 pixels. So let's right away input a button green color here, 20 pixels margin bottom, and here we need 40 pixels margin bottom. And now let's see how much spacing we need all around in this section. We need 60 pixels. So let's set the padding all around on our wrapper of 60 pixels. So let's hold shift so we can edit simultaneously all four values here, and let's input a border radius while we are still here. And now let's add one image tag inside our div here, and let's set this image here through source. I already uploaded, so let's hit use here. And now let's put my content and my image to go in one row. So here on the wrapper, I'm going to set display grid, and now my content and my image will be split up in two columns. And now we can check out how much spacing we have here. We have 66 pixels. So let's again select our wrapper, open the settings, and input 66 pixels of a gap here. And right away we can center our content here. So let's hit this option here, and now let's change our content on the left. And with our content changed here, we can go back to Figma to see how much spacing we have here. We have 150 pixels. So let's again set that on our section as bottom padding, 150. And with that, we have successfully finished our section. And now we came to the bottom of our web page here, or our footer section. So let's again go back to Divhunt and open these predefines again. Now let's open the wireframes and open the footers. Now here, let's choose the wireframe that resembles our design in Figma the most. So let's scroll here, and this one looks most similar. So let's drag it into our project, and we have our section here ready for us to edit it. Now let's go here and let's right away delete the stuff that we don't need here. So we don't need the logo, we don't need this whole block, we don't need a paragraph here, we don't need, so let's check out if we need button. So yes, we need one, but let's remove this one and we can add a new one. And for this here, let's see here, we would need a heading 2. So instead of deleting this one, let's transform this paragraph here into heading 2. So all I have to do is come here, right click on my heading 2, and as you can see here into the layers, my tag here is transformed into heading 2, but it doesn't have the styles of my heading 2. That's because from the predefines, he got some font styles set directly to it. So let's reset those styles here and reset it this top margin here, and you can see that it now has my heading 2 global styles. And now when this is completed, let's add one link here and let's set a class to it right away. So let's name it button. And what else we don't need here? We don't need this here and this right part here. And with that, we're pretty much good with removing the unnecessary stuff. So let's go back in Figma to see what we need to edit here. So right away we have this wide wrapper. So let's go here and create one container here. Let's set up the class here of container wide, because we need a wide container here. Let's input one div, which is going to be our wrapper. And on that wrapper, we're going to set up the background color here and border radius, and as well a spacing of 100 pixels and 40 pixels. So let's select our wrapper, set up the top padding to be 100 pixels, bottom padding to be 40 pixels. background color to be our background secondary, and border radius to be 40 pixels here. And now let's go back in Figma. You can see that this wrapper is going in width as my white container, but the content inside my footer is going as my regular container. So let's again go back in Divhunt, and you can notice that I haven't deleted this here. So let's select our container and drag it inside the wrapper that we created. And now you can see that we are using two containers, one with white class and one regular container. And now we got the structure that we need. Now let's go and right away fix this button stretching here. So as you can see, this parent here is set to flex. So let's reset this. And now let's copy this content. We need text green color here, and we need 40 pixels gap. So let's go back here, paste the content, set the margin bottom of 40 pixels, and set the color here to be text green. And we are pretty much done with the left side. Only thing left to do here is to paste the exact text in my button. I can double click on it, and I can as well here edit the text content of my button. And now for the right side, we can adjust the number of links here. So as you can see here, we need one title plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here as well, and 4 links here. So let's check out if the numbering here is correct. So you can see here we have this looped 7 times, this one is 4 times, so let's set it to be 7 as well, and this one is 4, so this one is okay here. And now let's remove these underline here. So let's just hit reset, and let's as well reset the font color and font size. Let's do the same here. So right click reset, and the same stuff we're going to do here. So reset everything, and let's check out if we have some styles here. We have, so let's reset them as well, so we can have blank styles for our text tags, so we can edit them how we want. Now when we have this structure here, let's check out what we need for styles. So starting from the title, we need class for our title of p-medium. So let's set that class on remaining titles here. That's it. And now we can check out what we need for our links. It is simple paragraph, so we don't have to edit our links. And to check out the spacing, it's 20 pixels between the links and between the titles. So let's see if that is correct. As you can see, the spacing is set on the parent, which is wrapping my links and the parent. It's set to 16 pixels. Let's change it to 20. And let's check here as well. You can see that it's 16 here as well. So let's change it to 20. And let's really quickly do the same for other columns here. And now you can see that these 3 columns are much wider than in Figma. That's because this here parent, which is wrapping these columns, is set to be grid, and the grid system will give my 3 columns inside of it to have exactly the same size. For this example here, I don't need my columns to have the same size. And to fix this, I can simply transform this grid to be flex. And now let's go back in Figma to check out how much spacing we need between our columns here. So we need 100 pixels. So let's input 100 here, and let's align everything to the right side, and our columns are completed here. And for this text down here, we need normal paragraph centered, and let's copy this text while we are here. So let's first of all change the content. And now let's select this bottom wrapper here, and let's set it to be a center here, so our text can be centered. And now let's check out the gap between our links and this text here. It's 60 pixels. So here is 64. So let's change it to 60. And with this, we have finished our footer. So the last thing would be to change the content and to double check if this spacing here is okay. So let's see, we have 60 pixels here and we have 80 pixels here. So we need to fix that here. And you can see that this predefined section has top padding of 80 pixels. Since we set to our top section bottom padding, which created enough space between this section and footer, we can simply reset this, and we don't need that extra spacing here. So now all that is left for me is to change the content of my links here. I'm back with my content change now, and with this we have successfully built our web page same as in Figma. But one thing is left to do here, and that is to make this project looks good on smaller devices. And to see what I mean, let's open the preview mode here, and now you can see that my project here on wider screens looks nice. But what happens if I shrink my viewport here? You will notice that as I scroll through my sections, my cards will go outside of my viewport, they'll get squished. These cards here will go like this text here and my image will collide, and this whole section will be messed up. And this, you can see that this image has shrinked here. So we need to be sure that our project is fully optimized for smaller devices. To do that, you would need to use breakpoints on your project. And how can you access them? Here at the top bar, you have this drop down with all the predefined breakpoints, and as well, you can add a custom breakpoint. So if I choose this one, you can see that my screen here, or my viewport, will shrink, and now I can see the content, how it will be shown on some tablets. Now every single style change I edit here will be applied only to this width and all the widths below this one. Every width above this one won't be affected at all by my styles. But there is one exception here. If you're changing the structure of your project, that will affect every single breakpoint. So why is this breakpoint useful for us? So let's begin editing our responsive here. So first of all, let's select this heading one here, select it globally, and let's right away reduce the font size of our heading ones globally. And as you can see, our hero section doesn't need any editing here, and our navbar section, because we used it from predefines, is already made fully responsive, so we don't need to touch anything here. So let's scroll down. We can do the same for our heading 2, so let's select heading 2 globally. Let's reduce the font size, for example, on 36 pixels. Here you can see that my cards are a little bit squished, so let's select the grid settings. Let's remove one column. Let's add a gap here, 28 pixels, and you can see that my cards now have more space, and we are finished here. For this section here, we maybe can set these here to go into a 2 rows, and for the wrapper that is wrapping our navigation links, we can set it to be grid, so everything can go in 2 columns, and this already looks perfect, so we can proceed even further. We can reduce the spacing here, so let's input 100, let's round it to 100, and let's immediately do the same here. And as you can see, this section here doesn't need editing, but our footer, because we removed some of the tags that were in our predefined footer, our responsive doesn't look so well. So let's go here and let's input this to go into 2 columns, and this already looks nice. And let's reduce this spacing here, so let's go with 50 pixels so our text can go into 1 row, and we can reduce this top gap here, so let's set it to be 60 pixels, and we are done here. So now when we are finished with this breakpoint, we can go and set even smaller breakpoint. So let's go at the top of our page, and here you can see that this heading here is still too big for this breakpoint, so let's again select our heading 1 globally. Let's reduce its font size to 60 pixels, and we can reduce maybe the top gap to be 200 pixels, left and right to be 40 pixels, and the same for the bottom one. And this here looks nice. So the heading 2 here is okay, but my cards here are okay, so I'll just skip them. We can set this title here to go into 2 rows. So let's remove 1 column here. Let's add a gap of, let's go with 45 pixels. And this already looks nice. And here you can see that my links and the content here are sticked to each other. So let's select our grid here and let's input some gap here. So let's go with 24 pixels so we can push this away from our navigation links. And here right away we can again reduce the space even more. We can go with 60 pixels, and here we can again go with 60 pixels. And this section here may need a little bit editing, so let's select this whole wrapper here and set everything to go into 2 rows, and let's again edit a spacing here. So let's go with 60 pixels, And this time, let's set this image here to go in full width. So let's set 100% width to our image, and you can see that it is fully stretched here. And for the footer, we can now go here, set everything to go into a 2 rows, and maybe let's go and make these links go like this. Let's align them to start. Let's increase the gap here. Let's input something like 70 pixels maybe. We can leave this as it is. And now let's switch to the smallest predefined breakpoint here. Let's scroll again to the top. And here we can again reduce the top spacing. Let's cut it to 125. And again, let's reduce the H1 globally. So let's set it to be 52 maybe. And this looks nice. And for the heading 2, we are again going to set this globally. So let's reduce it to 32 maybe. And our cards are again squished here. So this time, let's set every single card to be in a separate row so they have enough space. And here, while we are talking about space, let's reduce the spacing here. So let's go with 60 pixels. And here we can turn our nav links to go each in a separate row like this, and this looks nice. Now you can see that my text and image are colliding together. So let's go here and let's set them to go in separate rows. Let's set this image here. Let's set this image wrapper here. Max width to be 100% so we can fully stretch. And this section here is okay. Maybe we can reduce these spacing to go. Let's set all of them to go 40 pixels all around padding. So this looks nice. And now here, let's right away reduce the all around padding to 40 pixels maybe. Maybe reduce the gap between my content and image to 40 pixels, and this already looks nice. So let's again maybe reduce the spacing even more. Let's go with 20 pixels. And here let's go and reduce the top spacing. Let's set it to 40 pixels. And here we can go and set everything to align vertically and maybe increase the gap here so we can see clearly where the breakings are. And this looks pretty nice for now. And with this, we have made our project fully responsive for smaller devices. With that said, we came to the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed it and learned something new. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Until the next time, happy building!